Hello, Dr. Petersen. Thank you for the time and thank you for talking to us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to it. I really appreciate the way you've embraced the project and see its value.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. So can you take a few words about what made you edit this book and compile these texts?
Well, this book, Light and Liberty, is a book of Thomas Jefferson's writings. My name is Eric Petersen, and I'm a lawyer in Manhattan. I've always been an admirer of Thomas Jefferson. When you're a young, enthusiastic teenager in the United States and you're learning about the history of your country, you always have this general awareness of Jefferson in your awareness of the life of your country. And so I had the inspiration about a good 25, 30 years ago now to explore more deeply into his philosophy. And he wrote on so many different topics, and there's so many books written about Mr. Jefferson. But I was particularly interested in the spiritual aspect of Thomas Jefferson and in the practical advice that he had for his friends and his relatives in all of his letters about how to live a productive and fulfilling life and a life philosophy. So when you start reading further into Jefferson's writing and philosophy, you begin to get a richer and a fuller understanding of the way he looked at life and the message that he was trying to offer. So I became fascinated by this aspect of Jefferson, and I decided to try to pull out and extract all of these inspirational writings that he had. So what I did was I took whatever I found something inspiring in his writings, and so I ended up with about maybe 1,500, 1,700 short expressions of his wisdom. And then I grouped them under virtues and good qualities, because he said that it is through our virtues and try to improve our good qualities that happiness is to be found.
Would you say that what is his international impact? Do you think that his ideas about happiness, but also his political ideas, are really applicable for the whole world?
They are definitely applicable to the whole world. And during his time, there was basically no freedom of religion anywhere. His fundamental message was to have a structure of society and structure of government that would promote individual personal happiness, the happiness and freedom and happiness of each individual human being on the planet. And so the system that was set up by Jefferson and Washington and Madison, all the great American founders, was to have limited power at the central government level, more at the state level, and most at the local level, the level that's actually closest to the people. And then at each level, you divide the power into executive, legislative, and courts, the judicial.
It's easy to understand and to accept Hamilton's position. Then people are not ready. Even Socrates was a little bit skeptical about the democracy, because people need to work on their morals and their own understanding of the world so that they can govern themselves properly. But as you said, it probably starts from the individual level, then it goes to the next level and the next level.
That's a very good observation, because there's a section for interested readers in the book, there's a section there called Liberty. He's talking about these basic principles of organizing government and the freedoms of the people and their right to pursue their self-interest. But at the same time, he's talking about the rights of individuals and the rights of minorities. So he's talking about the necessity of the education and the improvement of each individual citizen's capacity to engage in self-government. And so that's why I chose, Light and Liberty is the title, because you have your liberty, you have your decentralized government, but you also have the light. The light is the feeling of oneness with your fellow man, trying to serve and assist your fellow man in every way that you can. The idea in Jefferson's framework was designed to be a free, decentralized, open-hearted society in which the best instincts and talents of citizens could flourish. He said, vision takes time to manifest. So you can have a vision like Thomas Jefferson's vision and of all its beautiful elements of a complete whole, and it doesn't happen overnight.
It really takes a lot of belief in human nature that has some positive. Many people will doubt that human being beings have good in their foundation. Some people will say, okay, they tried, but maybe now they're even worse than before. But does it mean that they shouldn't have tried? Because it's really difficult process, this transformation of basically human consciousness so that they can live a free life. It takes a lot of effort. And
it is, and that's why he wouldn't underestimate the difficulties of moving. I think that's a good way that you put it, human consciousness. You know, I think we all recognize that, you know, as individuals, we have some lower parts and some higher parts, right? And that's why I was always talking about education. He meant education, and it has both elements to it. It has the inner element, your inner consciousness, let's call it, and the outer education, learning, knowledge, and so forth. And he really believed in the importance of that, overcoming ignorance in a basic learning sense. But I think he also a strong believer in the inner, let's call it the inner education, right? It's each individual within themselves. Do they respect others? Do they identify with others? Are they willing to recognize the rights of others? Are they selfish enough to want to use power to enrich themselves? Inner qualities, right? You have to create conditions where the spiritual core of human beings can be left to flourish. And what's left to flourish, they'll be responsible toward fellow citizens. They'll create governments that respect the rights of citizens.
I'm sure many people will say, you know, look what's happening in the world now. Even in America is happening. And in the whole world, there are many things that people can find discouraging. And it's hard to find this faith in the good human beings at this time. What would you tell them?
You can look at the achievements of humanity, all the setbacks that we've been through. Every human being has an interest in the peace, prosperity, and happiness of every other. There has been so much improvement in society. Since if you compare the society of Jefferson's time to what we have now, if you'd have shown the condition of African Americans today versus the Jefferson's era, or the conditions of the peasants in France, right, to the French populace today, no one would believe it. There's been so much progress.
You mentioned slavery, so I think I have to ask you what was Jefferson's position on slavery? You know, there are African Americans. they have, as you said, they have been struggling under this terrible situation, being enslaved. And I mean, it's known that Jefferson himself owned slaves, and people, some people will try to, I think they say how he has these great ideals for freedom, but he owns people. So this is maybe difficult for some people to understand.
Oh, it's totally understandable if you look at it from today's perspective. Back then, when if you were a religious heretic, you were burned at the stake, right? That was that world. That was the world of oppressive ignorance. And Thomas Jefferson was born into that world, okay? And now, 12 generations later, we're all sitting here in this world and going, tut, 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 Thomas Jefferson, you had a slave, you know? Let's dial back 12 generations, right? And see the world he was living in. He said that millions of innocent men, women, and children, since the introduction of Christianity, have been burned, tortured, fined, and imprisoned. And yet, we have not advanced 1 inch toward uniformity. And so how are we going to make this a better world, right? So he inherited some slaves from his father. Along comes the Revolutionary War, and he's got all these slaves and a massive amount of debt. So he's trying to make the best life he can for his slaves. There's really no instances of abusing slaves. They had nowhere to ago. It was a racist society. This is the way. This is the world 12 generations ago, which he liberated us from, right? But when he was a state leader, he did all sorts of things to try to ameliorate and roll back the conditions of slaves. He said, you know, one of the famous phrases in the Declaration of Independence is, all men are created equal.
Probably many people will see parallels with, in different degrees, of course, the same thing in the world, you know, how societies are not ready to be freed. What would you say about this situation when people are not ready to lead a freer life, and the people who are taking care of them, kind of governing them for their own good, are misusing this? They're keeping them down.
It's one group of people controlling, governing, and oppressing people that they say are not capable of self-government. Mm-hmm. One group feeling superior over another group. Mm-hmm. That is the basic challenge. Mm-hmm. And when you see instances of the oppressed group not behaving well or properly, that just enables the oppressing group or the controlling group mm-hmm. to say, now see, they're not ready for self-government yet, right? And you can't do it all at once. You have to be patient. You have to be tolerant. You have to work toward the education.
They're applying today's standards on him, and he helped creating these standards. That's what I meant.
Right. That's the thing. Where, I mean, he was criticized during his time mm-hmm. very heavily. Was when he ran for president. Mm-hmm. He was opposed by a party called the Federalist Party. They're kind of like today's Republican Party, who didn't really feel that people were fully capable of self-government. They were too ignorant, and they're too ready to resort to violence, mm-hmm. and they were too ready to oppress their fellow man, that if you gave them a lot of power, like by giving them the vote in this decentralized system, they would abuse it. And Jefferson said, no, we're going to try it. This is an experiment. We're going to show mm-hmm. that if you give people freedom, decency, respect, and rights, treat them fairly, they can govern themselves. That was what it was all about. So it's always a steady, peaceful progress where you respect the reality that it takes time to get the vision of progress into society. If you go back in time 50 years ago, you saw there was the fear. Remember I was talking about the insecurity being part of America. You saw the fear of communism being perpetuated by a senator named Senator McCarthy. And he was fear of immigrants in our country in the 1900s.
That's in a way, I feel that, as you said, in every society there is a fear. There is a really comforting feeling about a monarch or somebody with a great power to govern right. you, to take care of you. That's right. That's very natural for human beings, as a mother or a father, to take care of you. Yeah. But then right. I also feel the need to emancipate yourself and to start taking responsibility, because freedom comes with a lot of responsibility, and I feel that many people are afraid of it. You know, society and people are moving towards this direction, but there might be setbacks. It's hard for me to judge for everybody, you know, but definitely there is people are not ready to accept their freedom. Some people are, but not everybody. Eric Petersen, thank you very much for your great talk. I feel we can talk even for more hours. We can leave it for another time maybe.
And if I could say to anyone who might be watching this video, okay, what Baridhi and his publishing company are doing here is incredibly important for Bulgaria. So thank you for our translator. Thank you for publishing it. And I'm very honored to have the opportunity to work with you on this Light and Liberty project.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, for your kind words, and for what you're doing, for promoting these ideas.
Thank you
very much.